These are some of the best Brooks walking shoes you can buy right now. From the Brooks Glycerin Max 2 to the Ghost Max 3, from the classic of the Ghost 17 to the Adrenaline GTS 25 and the Launch 12. And honestly, even compared to brands like ASICS and HOKA, Brooks might actually have some of the best and most comfortable walking shoes on the market right now. But most people still end up choosing the wrong one, because there are three big mistakes people make when they're choosing their walking shoes. People assume that more cushioning equals more comfort. Secondly, people buy stability shoes when they don't even need them. And thirdly, people assume that running shoes work equally well for walking. So let's start with the first mistake, assuming that more cushioning is the equivalent of more comfort. Because when you think about cushioning in the Brooks range, it's hard to look past the Brooks Glycerin Max 2. The Glycerin Max 2 is the most cushioned shoe Brooks makes. It has a very thick midsole of DNA-tuned cushioning, but interestingly, it actually feels firmer and more controlled than it looks. Part of the reason for that is the very wide platform underneath the shoe, which increases your contact with the ground and makes it feel surprisingly stable despite the amount of cushioning. It also has an excellent forefoot rocker, which helps your foot roll forward smoothly as you walk, rather than having to bend as much through the toes. That type of design can be particularly helpful if you have stiffness through the big toe joint, such as hallux rigidus, because the shoe helps guide your stride forward. So although this is Brooks' most cushioned shoe, it actually feels very smooth and efficient for longer walks. That combination of cushioning and rocker geometry is often why shoes like this are so popular with people who stand or walk on hard floors all day, such as nurses, teachers, and retail workers. But there is one small downside. Because the shoe sits quite high off the ground, people who have a history of ankle stability or poor balance may prefer something that's a little bit lower and a bit more stable. And that brings us to a Brooks shoe that a lot of people don't actually know about. This is the Brooks Ghost Max 3. Now most people know the regular Ghost, but the Ghost Max is actually quite a bit different. Compared to the Glycerin Max, the cushioning here feels a little bit firmer, and the shoe also sits slightly lower to the ground, which immediately makes it feel more stable when you step into it. You still get plenty of protection on the foot, but without that very high stack height feeling that some people find a little unstable in max cushion shoes. And that's really where the Ghost Max 3 works well. It has a very wide platform, which gives it the feeling that I describe as a stable neutral shoe. So you get cushioning and comfort, but with a much more planted and stable feel underneath your foot. This type of shoe works exceptionally well if you're someone who wears orthotics or insoles, because the base of the shoe is nice and broad and flat, and the fit is generous throughout the whole length of the shoe. So if you're someone who has a wider foot, this is the most accommodating shoe in the Brooks range. It's a shoe that we recommend most often to our patients with conditions like big toe arthritis or Morton's neuroma. But if you prefer something a little bit more traditional and flexible, then the next shoe might suit you better. Next we have the Brooks Glycerin 23. Now if the Glycerin Max feels a little bit too big or bulky and the Ghost Max 3 feels a little bit firmer, then the Glycerin 23 sits right in the middle of these two shoes. You still get a lot of cushioning on the foot, so it's very comfortable for long days of walking or standing, but it doesn't feel quite as high or as heavy as the Max models. Where the Glycerin really stands out though is the overall comfort of the shoe. The upper is very plush, with lots of padding around the heel and tongue, and the engineered mesh wraps around the foot really nicely without feeling tight or restrictive. So when you step into it, you just get that premium, comfortable feel immediately. The cushioning is also nicely balanced. It's softer than the Ghost models, but it still feels controlled enough that most people find it comfortable for everyday walking. The fit is very accommodating throughout the forefoot, so you feel like a shoe that's comfortable and roomy in the toe box. The Glycerin tends to work really well, and it comes in a wide version as well. So if you want a Brooks model that gives you premium comfort without max cushioning, then the Glycerin 23 works really well. But the most popular Brooks model for walking is still the Ghost 17. The Ghost has been one of Brooks' most popular shoes for years, and a big reason for that is how balanced and easy it feels on the foot. Compared to other shoes we've talked about so far, like the Glycerin Max, Ghost Max and Glycerin, the Ghost is noticeably lighter, which many people prefer if they're doing a lot of walking during the day. The midsole also feels a little more energetic, so instead of feeling soft or bulky, the shoe feels lighter and easier to move in as you walk. That's why it's often a good option for people who find max cushion shoes a little bit too heavy or too high off the ground, but still want something comfortable for everyday walking. You still get enough cushioning to stay comfortable on hard surfaces, but the slightly firmer feel gives you a stable and controlled ride, which a lot of walkers really appreciate. So if you want a Brooks walking shoe that feels light, comfortable, and very natural to walk in, the Ghost 17 is one of the safest choices. But there is another version of the Ghost that's worth mentioning if you don't just walk on the pavement, and that's the Brooks Ghost Trail. This is essentially the same idea as the Ghost, but built for mixed terrain. So if you're walking on gravel paths, park trails, forest paths or uneven ground, the outsole has much deeper rubber lugs which give you much better grip and traction. You still get that familiar Ghost cushioning and comfortable fit, but with a little bit more protection underneath the shoe. So if most of your walking is off-road or on rougher surfaces, the Ghost Trail may be a better option for you than the traditional Ghost 17. But for some people, they simply need a little bit more support and stability underneath their foot. And this brings us to the second mistake that people often make: buying stability shoes when they don't actually need them. The Brooks Adrenaline GTS 25 is one of Brooks' most popular stability shoes, but the support here is actually quite subtle compared to many traditional stability models. Instead of a big rigid arch support, Brooks uses what they call guide rails, which sit along the sides of the shoe and help you keep your foot centered and controlled as you walk. So if you feel like your ankle rolls inward slightly when you walk, or you just want a bit more guidance underfoot, the Adrenaline can be a really nice option. It has a 10mm drop, so that's the difference in height from the back to the front of the shoe, which is really helpful for offloading your calf and Achilles. The cushioning is nice and balanced and predictable, so maybe not as energetic or as exciting as the Ghost 17, and the forefoot is quite flexible overall. So just important to note that higher drop with a flexible forefoot, not ideal for those of you with sensitivity in the ball of the foot. So overall, the Adrenaline GTS 25 works for those of you who want balanced cushioning with some guidance underfoot to help keep you centered in the shoe as you move. But if you want greater cushioning combined with exceptional support, look no further than the Brooks Glycerin GTS 23. Think of this as the stability version of the Glycerin, but with a bit more structure built into the shoe. You still get that plush cushioning and very comfortable upper, but the guide rail support system helps to keep your foot centered and controlled as you walk. One thing you'll notice straight away though is that the heel in this shoe is quite rigid, which adds a lot of stability around the back of the foot, and you'll also get some direct arch support underneath your foot as well. This can be particularly helpful if you find that your ankle collapses inward when you walk, or if you just want a shoe that feels secure and stable. Because the combination of cushioning and structure, it's a model that works really well for people with flatter feet, those who need some help with pronation control, or you're just looking for maximum stability from a highly cushioned shoe. But not everyone wants a shoe that feels this supportive or structured. And that's where the Brooks Launch 12 comes in. This is one of the lightest shoes Brooks makes, and it's also one of the more budget-friendly options in their lineup. So if you found some of the other models a little bulky or expensive for everyday walking, the Launch 12 can be a really nice alternative. Compared to shoes like the Glycerin or Ghost, the cushioning here is a little bit firmer and more responsive, which many people prefer for shorter walks, commuting, or everyday casual wear. It also uses Brooks DNA Flash V2 midsole, which is the same foam that we see in their premium trail shoe, the Catamount 4, so it has a slightly more energetic feel underfoot. That means that the shoe feels lighter and quicker when you're walking, rather than soft and bulky. You get that familiar Brooks package, but at a more budget-friendly price. The only caveat to this shoe is that it's slightly narrower in the toe box than most of the other Brooks shoes that we've recommended today, but all of Brooks shoes are true to size and length, which simplifies the decision making when you're trying to buy online. So in summary, if you want maximum cushioning, the Glycerin Max 2. For a more stable, orthotic friendly shoe, the Ghost Max 3. For premium neutral comfort, the Glycerin 23. For the most balanced everyday walking shoe, the Ghost 17. If you do a lot of your walking on trails or uneven paths, the Ghost Trail. If you want mild stability, the Adrenaline GTS 25. For maximum cushioning with stability built in, the Glycerin GTS 23. And for a lighter, more budget-friendly option, the Launch 12. And if you want to stay up to date with the latest releases, comparisons, and the best deals I can find on walking shoes, we also have a monthly newsletter. There's a link in the description if you want to subscribe. But if you're still unsure of which Brooks is right for you, drop a question in the comment section below. I've links to all the shoes in the description if you want to check out the latest price on Amazon. And if you want to learn more about these shoes individually, I've got separate individual reviews for each and some comparisons of the more popular models within the Brooks range, both to the Brooks models and HOKA and ASICS. And finally, if you watch the channel regularly but haven't subscribed, please do, as there's a single thing that you can do for free that makes the biggest difference to our channel. Otherwise, thank you very much for once again for tuning in.